So let's begin today. Approach to wrist pain and TMJ syndrome. Wrist joint, a small joint but a complex joint. It is made of 8 carpal bones plus radius and ulna. Of course, we can also count the 5 metacarpals, but this is my wrist joint. This is not my wrist joint. So there are 8 carpal bones we know, starting distal row from lateral medially trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, hamate, pisiform. Pisiform is resting on triquetrium, lunate and scaphoid. Scaphoid and capitate are two of the biggest ones, others are tiny ones. And then radius and ulna. Wrist joint is formed by distally, this is the distal part, the proximal row of carpal bones, trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, hamate, but not the pisiform, and the heads of the metacarpals. Proximally, the distal end of radius and the articular disc. See this blue color thing? It is only radius and this blue colored articular disc. Ulna is not a part of wrist joint. Together, the carpal bones form a convex surface. You see a convex surface which fits well or articulates with the concave surface of the head of the radius and the articular disc. So this is my wrist joint. There are two joints, wrist, which is radiocarpal joint, radius and carpal. We know ulna is not a part of the thing. Radiocarpal joint, 3 carpal bones and the articular disc. And second is carpo-metacarpal joint, where the remaining 4 carpal bones connect with the 5 metacarpal bones. So this is the wrist joint, radiocarpal joint. Wrist has lot of movements, flexion, extension. You may try, but keeping the elbow straight, you can achieve maybe 90 degrees extension, but these are neutral positions. Radial deviation, ulnar deviation, pronation and supination. And for a patient of rheumatoid arthritis, we advise these movements 15 times a day as a part of exercise so that the joint remains functional. Because anytime this joint is left alone, not used because of pain, there is tremendous stiffness and they lose all movements. Coming to wrist pain. If any part of the wrist, the bones, the radius, the 3 carpal bones, the ligaments connecting them, the tendons get injured, it can lead to wrist pain. Wrist pain that is recurring is often due to repetitive stress injuries. Players, badminton, tennis, squash, table tennis, these are the players who get recurrent wrist pain if they are not careful and they are not exercising regularly. And sometimes joint inflammation. Joint inflammation commonest is rheumatoid. Most cases of hand and wrist pain are not a sign of serious or long-term problem and usually settle in a few days or weeks with some simple management done by us family physicians. you very rarely need to send a patient of wrist pathology to an orthopedic surgeon if you know your subject well. What are the causes? The causes is osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis. I'll show you a picture of rheumatoid wrist. Osteoarthritis, you will definitely see the age of the patient, or you will see whether the patient has been injuring the wrist repeatedly, because we know that any joint which has been getting micro injuries generally gets osteoarthritis faster. Like in a knee joint, all marathon runners will get knee arthritis earlier than others who were just doing brisk walking. De Quervain's disease, we'll talk in detail on this. Carpal tunnel syndrome, we'll talk in detail on this. Repetitive motion syndrome, mainly as I said, the players, any repetitive movement. A patient can come to you, a housewife or a maid servant with wrist pain. Then you ask them that, okay, how many chapatis you make in a day? If she's a cook, she'll say 200. Then that is repetitive movement of the wrist. If a lady will come to you, housewife with acute wrist pain, you have to ask, did you do some heavy work yesterday? Yes, doc, I washed some big vessels. Moti bandi dhutli. That, so somewhere you have to get an idea what kind of movement has been done which has caused this pain. Triangular fibrocartilage complex injury, I will show it to you again in detail. And wrist tendinitis or bursitis. So history and examination. If there is a history of injury, you have to ask the details of what was the mechanism of injury, how the injury occurred, and what was the cause. You have to ask specifically fall on an outstretched hand, because this is the commonest cause of radius fracture, or what we know as collisus fracture. In elderly patients who have osteoporosis, they will say, no, I did not fall. Then you have to ask them, कभी आप जमीन पे बैठे थे और पूरा सपोर्ट लेके आप खड़े हुए क्या? Did you take the full body weight on your wrist and get up? Yes. Then such a patient can also get a collisus fracture without actually having fallen. Is the injury insidious or sudden? Patient doesn't remember any injury. Sometimes people say that I hit my hand on a wall or on a wardrobe or a table. That is a blunt trauma, and that is likely to respond very well in 5 days of treatment. Is it insidious injury? And if it is, they are players, any of the 4-5 games that I said, then you ask them, have you been getting it for some time, or is it just now that you have started? Handedness, you have to ask the patient, is the patient left-handed, right-handed? Based on all the history that I give you of repetitive movements, playing, working in the house, then that will explain. So a person, if is complaining of left wrist pain, then you have to ask, are you left-handed? Right-handed, you ask right-handed. What is the occupation? Does the occupation require repetitive movements of the wrist? Earlier on, before the note counting machines came on, people working in bank who were counting notes the whole day would complain of wrist pains by the time it was evening. Ask for any previous injury or any previous fracture. Exact location of the pain, they have to pinpoint with an index finger where exactly the pain is, so you can understand which bone may be involved or which part is involved. Presence and location of pain. Is it pain? Is it numbness? Is it tingling? What exactly does the patient feel? This will differentiate from first only. Before you touch the patient, you may start thinking that, okay, this may be carpal tunnel syndrome. Aggravating and relieving factors. What aggravates and what relieves? Which work aggravates and does the rest relieve? Functional limitations. What are the activities, daily activities that the patient cannot do? Were any diagnostic test imaging performed before the patient came to you? And what are the results? Many times patients don't tell you. They just walk in and then you have to ask them, have you been to somebody before this? We presume that we are the first doctor. No, I went, we did X-ray, we did CBC-ESR, but nothing was there. Okay, show me the report. No, I have not brought. A scaphoid fracture, I am sure everybody knows, may not be visible on X-ray until 10 days after the injury. So immediately, if not seen, repeat X-ray after 10 days, or if the pain is worse, ask for a CT or MR. History and examination. Hold the patient's hand and using both your thumbs and index fingers, palpate the wrist joint gently all across to understand where the pain is or where the tenderness is. If the pain and tenderness is in the first metacarpophalangeal joint, that is the seat for rheumatoid arthritis, then palpate each such joint individually or singly. If you are looking at the finger, some patients have pain in the distal IP joint and you find some swelling, start to elicit tenderness. That is the location for osteoarthritic Heberden nodes. You cannot treat wrist without actually treating the hand also. Patient may complain of wrist problem, but you may pick up some problems in the hand on examination. Tell the patient to outstretch the hand completely, extend all fingers and with force. So total outstretched hand and see whether there is any deformity. Look at the thenar eminence. And hypothenar eminence. Is there proper muscle bulge or there is wasting? And ask the patient to make a fist. 4 fingers fully flexed, tight clenching of the fist and thumb overriding them. All this will tell you, collate these examination findings, what is positive with the history and the palpation, and you will have your diagnosis. So let's look at de Quervain's tenosynovitis. Patients with DQT usually report pain at the dorsolateral aspect of the wrist with referral of pain, the thumb and or lateral forearm. So I will stop share and I will just show you where the pain usually occurs. This is the area that the patient will complain of pain. The pain going towards the thumb or the lower part of the forearm. Somebody asked a question when I wrote of scaphoid fracture. When does one do CT? When does one do MRI? When you are looking at a bone injury, you always prefer CT. When you are looking or suspecting a soft tissue injury, a ligament, a tendon, then you do an MRI because MRI will delineate soft tissues very well. Is the pain occupation or vocation related? pain on radial side of wrist and thumb base. So taking it further, it is caused by stenosing tenosynovitis of the first dorsal compartment of the wrist. This is the first dorsal compartment. There are 5 compartments, and the first dorsal is this, which has 2 muscles, extensor pollicis brevis and abductor pollicis longus. So when the patient extends the thumb or abducts the thumb, patient is likely to get pain because this synovial membrane has got inflamed. The first dorsal compartment at the wrist includes the tendons of the abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis. A test to confirm de Quervain tenosynovitis, Finkelstein test to confirm DQT, in which I think I would request all of you, when I am describing this, you should move your hand to confirm. This is how you will test the patient, so that when you are actually examining a patient, it becomes very easy. In which the thumb is flexed into palm. I showed you a fist making with 4 fingers flexed and thumb overriding it. But for this test, Finkelstein test, I need the thumb inside and 4 fingers on top of that. Flexion of that kind. The wrist is then bent towards the ulnar side. If positive result, if this produces pain and crepitus along the path of the involved tendon on the right side, on the lateral side, then the diagnosis is confirmed. This picture will explain to you. This person has taken thumb inside and 4 fingers and bending towards the ulnar side. This puts a stretch on this tendon and causes pain or tingling numbness, whatever the patient was getting. So you are reproducing the symptoms. Finkelstein test. And it becomes very impressive that when a patient's no paper, you write Finkelstein test positive. And such diagnosis people don't expect us family doctors to make. Then entrapment syndromes. I told you that there are 5 compartments, and so many tendons. These entrapment syndromes, they cause paresthesia with numbness and tingling more than pain. So most patients may not be educated enough to tell you about tingling numbness. So if they tell you pain, so you have to ask them, is it truly pain or is it pins and needles? Is it ants crawling? Or tell them to describe pain. What kind of pain? Is it warmth? Is it like current? Then they will tell you what kind of symptoms they have. Common sites include ulnar nerve at the elbow. It gets entrapped. Median nerve at the wrist, carpal tunnel, that is we are discussing, that is why it is given in red. The lateral cutaneous nerve at the thigh, it's called meralgia paresthetica. People complain, many patients you must have seen who will come to you, point to the lateral side of the thigh and they say, I feel numbness here. That is the entrapment syndrome. The posterior tibial nerve at the ankle, tarsal tunnel syndrome, just like carpal tunnel syndrome. So how do you determine the location and pattern of pain and specific movement that exacerbate pain? You have to find out whether it is which nerve has been involved. As we said, de Quervain tenosynovitis is the right side, the thumb, and the lateral side. We'll see what is carpal tunnel syndrome, but we have to ask all this history. What is the patient work? What are the tasks the patient does every day? Hobbies, sports. What are the hobbies of the patient? What are the sports he or she plays? Any previous injuries? Sleeping position. Some people sleep in an odd position. Some people will flex their wrist, put it under the head and sleep. That could then get up with a pain. History of clenching the jaw or hands. Carpal tunnel syndrome. This is the synovial membrane at the wrist, and this red thing that you are seeing is the median nerve. Carpal tunnel syndrome is entrapment of the median nerve, which causes neuropathy because there is pressure on the medial nerve, causes paresthesia, pain, numbness, and other symptoms, tingling and all that, in the distribution of the median nerve due to its compression at the wrist in the carpal tunnel. The pain is often worse at night. Daily activities such as driving and typing may increase the symptoms. So these people, if they are working on computers, will attribute the pain and symptoms to the computer typing. Many will come and tell you, doctor, because I use the mouse whole day, I'm getting this. No, that is their association. That cannot cause carpal tunnel syndrome. See this. This blue shading is the distribution of the medial nerve. So I have whole of thumb, index finger, middle finger, and the lateral half of the ring finger. And this is where it is pressed. Patient will complain, see the keyboard is shown because patient will attribute it to the computer. There are two signs to confirm. One is Tinel sign. If you tap at the location of the median nerve, it sends a current-like feeling across the distribution of medial nerve. Just see. So Tinel sign, this is called Tinel sign. It's positive. It confirms that it is carpal tunnel syndrome before even you send a patient to EMG, electromyography, or nerve conduction velocity test. This is called Fallon test. Is a provocative test used in the diagnosis of CTS. Holding hands like this, reverse namaste for 60 seconds with forearms absolutely straight, 90-degree flexion of both the wrist and pressing against each other, either actively by the patient or the doctor doing it. If in 60 seconds the symptoms of patient tingling, numbness, pain in the thumb, index finger, middle finger, and lateral half of the ring finger comes up, then that is again a confirmation of carpal tunnel syndrome. This you have to tell the patient that this treatment will be mostly surgical, but we will confirm it after a test called EMG NCV. Diagnosis: typical symptom, Tinel test and Fallon test. Confirmation is by EMG NCV. EMG NCV actually tells you that whether the patient can wait or patient should go in for immediate surgery. If you see that total denervation has occurred already, then you better send for surgery immediately and not wait. Treatment: non-surgical exercises, surgical if symptoms more than 6 months, or EMG NCV tells you that there is a total denervation of the nerve, then you go immediately and they release the tendon. So basically a small nick is made in the tendon sheath and the tendon is released. Coming to triangular fibrocartilage complex injury, this thing is the triangular fibrocartilage complex. What I showed you in the first image, this blue thing, triangular fibrocartilage complex. This is the distal radioulnar joint, ulnar styloid process. The TFCC or triangular fibrocartilage complex is a load-bearing structure between lunate, tracheatrium and ulnar head. Its function is to stabilize the ulnar aspect of the wrist. Although ulnar head is not part of the wrist, but that part of the wrist has to be stabilized. It is at risk for either acute or chronic degenerative injury. Acute may be lifting something in a jerk. In a gym, people can suddenly lifting heavy weights with a jerk can get this, or while playing again, or degenerative age related. Forced ulnar deviation and positive ulnar variation carry association with injuries to the TFCC. So if you're doing the Franklin-Dynes test and you push very hard, then it can cause the TFCC complex injury. Patient with TFCC injury will present with ulnar sided wrist pain. Decurvence is radial sided wrist pain. This is ulnar sided wrist pain that may present with clicking or point tenderness between the pisiform and the ulnar head. Feel in your wrist the ulnar head, and just next to that is the pisiform. In between both, if you get tenderness, that is TFCC complex injury. MRI imaging is the preliminary diagnosis because it is a soft tissue, it is not a bone. Arthroscopy is the diagnostic gold standard. That is theory. In our practice, or at least my knowledge, I have never seen arthroscopy of such small joints being done. We don't even know whether any doctor is doing today in the city. Treatment options include conservative therapy such as NSAID, RAST, and maybe corticosteroid injection if the pain is debilitating. All of the conditions that I have explained till now is rest, NSAID, and exercises, and you tide over the thing, other than carpal tunnel syndrome where you need release. Prognosis of TFCC injury is generally favorable. Wrist tendonitis, also known as tendinitis, inflammation of one or more tendons in the wrist. This inflammation typically causes symptoms such as pain, swelling, stiffness, or warmth, all the signs or features of inflammation. It is caused due to small micro tears in the tendon as a result of sudden or repetitive injury. See, these are the tendons, flexor tendons and extensor tendons on the back of the hand, and this is the palmar aspect. And based on which tendons are affected, you will have extension wrist tendonitis or flexion wrist tendonitis. Then ganglion, everybody has seen and treated ganglion. Ganglion cyst, lumps that most commonly develop in the wrist and more often on the extensor aspect or the dorsal aspect, typically round or oval and are filled with a jelly-like fluid. It is so densely packed that it virtually feels like a bone, and it is difficult to convince the patient that it is not a bone, it is a fluid. It is the lubricating fluid of the tendon that gets collected in a sac. Non-cancerous lumps most commonly develop at the wrist or hands. They may also occur in the ankle and feet. No treatment. It is also known jokingly as Bible cyst. In first MBBS, or not first MBBS, in MBBS, when we were learning, we were told you can take Gray's Anatomy book and bang it on the ganglion, hoping that it will go away. Some doctors, if it has become very ugly, they put in a syringe and remove the synovial fluid or the jelly, but the patient has to be cautioned that it can collect again. Patients who undergo surgery should also be cautioned that it can develop again either at the same place or a different place. Wrist rheumatoid. Rheumatoid arthritis often causes inflammation in one or both wrist joints. Actually, according to me, the first clinical feature of wrist, or rather rheumatoid arthritis, is the swelling in the wrist joint on the lateral aspect. So if you ask the patient to put both hands flat on the table in front of you, you will see that the lateral side of the wrist, the that is swollen, you cannot see the creases of the skin very easily. There is also joint stiffness which can impair the movement at the wrist. So wrist lateral side and first metacarpopharyngeal joint are generally affected earliest in rheumatoid arthritis. Writer's cramp, it is the most common form of task-specific focal hand dystonia. Now, some people will come and tell you, while writing exam, I get cramps. That is not writer cramps. That may be they're writing very fast or holding the pen very tight. It's an idiopathic movement disorder of adult onset characterized by abnormal posturing and movement during tasks requiring skilled hand use. The writer's cramp of exam time generally responds very well to amitriptyline 10 milligram given about 10 days before the exam and continued about 15 days later. Overcontraction of the affected muscles, co-contraction of the agonist and antagonist pairs of the wrist, and activation of muscles inappropriate to a task all impair use of affected hand. The best treatment currently available is chemodenervation using botulinum toxin. If somebody is getting severe writer's cramp, these are the 4 exercises they can do to overcome that and continue working. Hand first straight, first then hook fist, keeping the palm, not involving the palm, only the phalanges bending, then making a full fist and then a straight fist. If you do this 5-10 times, the patient's cramp can get relieved. Coming to temporomandibular joint, the mandible and the temporal bone. This is the ear canal, and the ramus of the mandible fits into the glenoid fossa of the temporal bone, forming temporomandibular joint. See this is the temporomandibular joint. Understand, it is not one joint, it is actually 2 joints. The TM joints are actually 2 joints connecting the jawbone to the skull. It is the bilateral synovial articulation. This orange thing is the superior synovial cavity, and this orange color is inferior synovial cavity in between. This is the articular disc. So it is a bilateral synovial articulation between the temporal bone of the skull above and mandible below. TMJ, feel for the temporomandibular joint just in front of the tragus of each ear as the jaw is opened and closed. So ask the patient, put your finger there, ask the patient to open the jaw slowly and close it. When the patient opens, your finger will slide into the gap. And when the patient closes, the finger will come out. That is the TM joint. And then check for tenderness there if the patient is complaining of pain. Temporomandibular joint disorder, the cause is often very difficult to determine. The pain may be due to a combination of various factors, could be arthritis, could be jaw trauma. Maybe people try to bite on something very hard, like trying to break bone of a mutton, breaking walnuts, or as youngsters we used to do in college, opening a soda bottle with teeth. These things can cause damage to the joint. There may be a history of clenching or grinding teeth, bruxism. In most cases, the pain and discomfort associated with TMJ disorder is temporary and can be relieved with GP managed care and non-surgical treatment. Again, no referrals for temporomandibular joint disorder. Surgery is typically a last resort after conservative measures have failed and patient has tremendous pain, patient cannot chew. Symptoms are pain or tenderness of the jaw. It may not be only at the TMJ, it may be around the jaw also. Pain in one or both TM joints, aching pain in and around the ear, referred pain. So you have to always rule out ear pathology before making a diagnosis of TMJ disorder. Difficulty chewing or pain while chewing, aching facial pain, locking of the joint, making it difficult to open or close. Many times if it is arthritis, if the cartilage has got eroded, then the joint can get locked and patient will have a angulated face, the jaw will be on one side. How do you manage? Rule out dental problem. As I said, rule out ear problem, rule out dental problem also of the molar teeth. Rest to the joint. So we tell people for few days have only soft food and do not chew from the affected side. NSAIDs, enzymes like ceratopeptidase, chimeral-4 enzymes, that spelling is wrong. The biggest advantage is exercise, and we can teach people exercise. So first exercise is forward jaw movement. I'll again stop share the screen. One second. Okay, I hope I can demonstrate it well, because this is one exercise which you can show the patient. Okay, please pin me on the thing, admin. Okay. Now see, I am opening my mouth just half an inch. Then I am jutting my lower jaw forward so that my lower teeth are in front of the upper teeth. Watch me. Was it visible clearly? Someone answer me, please. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Rajesh. So this is first exercise. All of you, I think now open your mouth half an inch and take your lower jaw forward so that your lower teeth are in front of the upper teeth, and tell the patient to do this as much as he or she can do in a day. This will help relieve TMJ disorder. This is one exercise. Second exercise is tongue up. With your tongue touching the roof of your mouth, slowly open and close your mouth. So try this again. Touch the tongue to the hard palate, and while holding the tongue like that, slowly open and close mouth. This is an exercise for the TM joint, because now you see that while opening and closing mouth with the tongue up on the hard palate, you are actually not straining the joint. Third exercise, resisted opening of the mouth. Place your thumb under your chin. So you are actually forcing the mouth to close. Now open your mouth slowly, pushing gently against the resistance. When the mouth is opened, you actively push from down. So the mouth is being opened against resistance. Hold for 3 to 6 seconds and then close your mouth slowly. So these three exercises help immensely. The fourth exercise, which if you can, I cannot do myself, so I cannot show the patient. What they say is take a thick pencil and place it underneath the molars and then chew on that pencil. It is difficult, so I get very good results with these three exercises. So I thought I'll share these three with you. Then very rarely you get TMJ dislocation. You see the mandibular fossa here. And the mandibular condyle has come out from here. This requires an orthopedic surgeon to reduce. Elbow dislocation in children, we can reduce. This I have not tried. If anybody has tried and been successful, very good. So TMJ dislocation occurs when the condyle of the jaw moves forward out of its functional position within the glenoid fossa and posterior articular eminence into a position in front of these structures. This stretches the ligament muscles, provoking intense local orofacial pain and a deformity of the lower jaw. That is all for today. There is some time, so I'll see some questions, and I would like now, I'm actually running out of topics, so I would like you all to actually tell me what topics you would like covered. A lot of yes came. TM joint makes noise while chewing. See the noise that comes, no, the click that comes actually shows that the cartilage there is getting eroded. And you have to caution the patient. What people do, suppose there is a click they hear, they try to do different maneuvers just to see whether the click comes up again or not. So tell them each time you hear a click, you are actually damaging your cartilage. Dislocation of TMJ management, not for us. Carpal tunnel syndrome common in pregnancy. I have not seen and literature does not say. CTS can be cured without surgery. How to know is EMG NCV you have to do. Causes of CTS, entrapment syndrome, somewhere the tendon gets entrapped into the thing, edema, inflammation, whatever, that is the reason. Any good medicine for crepitus? No. Crepitus requires exercise. You have to strengthen the muscles around the joint where you are hearing crepitus so that the cartilage can move properly. Numbness of tip of fingers, you have to find out if the numbness is in all the 10 fingers, then it is a systemic cause, it's not a local cause. Okay, Dr. Kamath has given a mnemonic. She looks too pretty, try to catch her. The name of all the carpal bones. Okay, so would somebody like to tell me what should be the next topic? OA of first metacarpopharyngeal joint, can you explain? See, first metacarpopharyngeal joint is more involved in rheumatoid. The interphalangeal joint is OA. This is rheumatoid. Somebody saying head injury, somebody saying diabetes. Diabetes we can't cover full in one day. Okay, let's take neck pain. I have covered with spinal pain. So I'll cover neck pain and head injury. Because you have to understand very well what is head injury and what is injury to head. These are two different things. So what I'll do is I'll collect 2-3 topics and do that. Thank you very much. Today I'm leaving you in 1 hour because I'm sure you have practice. Okay, I think this is, I said just now, no? So I think I will do home isolation treatment of COVID and what all to give if different parameters are high, D-dimer, ferritin, IL-6, CT score. Let's do that next week then. And other things that we will do next to next. Dr. Ashok Mishra wants a detailed explanation. COVID onset symptoms and management if CT value 13 and no bed available. Dr. Mishra, now you have to treat every patient as if because beds are just not available. And this is the time, I always say, I think in one lecture I said also, we general practitioners cannot break bad news to patient. If you have a patient who's not likely to survive, then you have to tell the patient upfront, see, we are doing the best we can, but without a bed, I cannot promise you that I'll be making the patient all right. People take medicine on their own, but then when they come to us, they feel we should save them. That is why you need to have parameters. Like today, I had a patient whose D-dimer was 830, and people want reassurance. I gave oral anticoagulant. He's asking me, nothing to worry, no? I said, no, definitely something to worry, but currently treatable. You have to be very specific in the words that you use. I always say that we doctors know, jokingly, have a Shah Rukh Khan in us. There was a movie of Shah Rukh Khan, Main Hoon Na. We doctors, patient raises a suspicion, we say, Main Hoon Na, I'll make you all right. No, we cannot do that. And a colleague, Dr. Vimal Mishra, had asked me last year when we did a COVID talk, he said, can we do this test and give Clexane at home? That time I said, no, don't be so ambitious. But today I will say, yes, we can do that. Dr. Mishra, I'm sorry to hear about a brother's loss. No, I will cover the next talk will be on COVID management at home. Dr. Rane, adolescent girl has a ferritin level of 631. What about other tests? See, I must tell you this now. I have had wrong reports. I had in a patient D-dimer of 10 when the normal was below 0.5. And the patient is fine. No fever, no oxygen desaturation. And it was from a good lab. I repeated. And the D-dimer was 0.2. Another patient got IL-6 report of 146. Both the patient and I did not sleep in the night. Next day, we did a repeat test from 2 labs. And the reading was 3.5 from one, 3.6 from another. So, any report which is very abnormal and does not fit into the patient's clinical condition, please repeat. Now, 631 ferritin alone, ferritin is an indication of likelihood of severe COVID infection. Now, is the patient having cough? Is the patient having fever? Is the patient having breathless? Is the oxygen saturation not maintaining? Is D-dimer high? Is IL-6 high? What is the CRP? If CRP is 10 and this is 631, I would like to repeat this. All symptoms of COVID but report negative. See, nowadays, though, it is to be treated if the HRCT is talking of CORAD 5 with a score of 12 to 15. because there is a talk somewhere that the current variant report may be negative. So I don't think they're taking secretions from lung and all. I have not heard. So I think you have to treat them as COVID. If they have symptoms, if they have D dimer and all these raised, then you have to treat them. Even if it is not COVID now, and it is a typical viral pneumonia with a risk of thromboembolism, then we have to treat. We have to treat the patient. It's like, as a family physician or as a consultant likes to do investigation and tell the patient, kuch nahi hai, jao. We cannot tell. Our patient will come to us. Why, if nothing is wrong, why am I sick? So today I'm telling you, private sector, we are not getting RT-PCR. So I am sending even very rich patients to BMC to do rapid antigen and RT-PCR. Okay, thank you very much. See you next week.